The Memphis Police Department has released all of the decertification documents relating to the police officers who were responsible, allegedly, for the death of Tyre Nichols. I'm going to take a look at this newly released document that included a statement from one of the officers, Justin Smith. Yeah. What I want to do in this video is take a look at the statement from Justin Smith that was included. I have not had a chance to go through all of the documents. It's over 100 pages. But my preliminary review of it, in my preliminary view of it, I found this statement that he had included, and I was sort of wondering what happened to the other officer statements. I don't think maybe they made written statements like this. They may have, it may be in there, and I may have just missed it when I was going through, but I do want to take a look at this statement. And again, to some extent, this is why I prefer talking about things like white collar crime and fraud, because this is just really hard to talk about. It's really hard to wrap your brain around the fact that they just kicked and beat him up, and then just the callous disrespect for him being just another person. So this is really hard, but I'm going to go to the document now so that I can stop sounding so emotional. And I'm going to read this statement so that we can see what Justin Smith actually said happened. And maybe this can provide a little bit more insight for us. Statement of Justin L. Smith. I'm making this statement to the best of my recollection, and I reserve the right to amend it for purposes of clarification. Any inconsistencies between this statement and other officers' statements, witness statements, or what may have been captured partially or completely by audio or video recordings should not be considered as being or attempting to be untruthful. It is a well-established fact that an officer's perceptions during critical incidents will differ from others and or what is captured on video or audio. I'm going to stop here for just a second because I want to talk a little bit more about this. I almost feel like he's started out trying to set the stage to say, my recollection may differ from someone else's, and it may even look different from the Skycop cam. But what I'm seeing and what I'm recalling is my version of the truth. In the decertification documents, one of the policy charges that's listed is untruthfulness, and what was provided in oral and written statements versus what the video has shown. It makes me wonder whether or not this first paragraph is an attempt to provide some, I guess, an opposing view to what this charge actually said, because it says, hey, you guys were being untruthful in some of your statements. And now in his very first paragraph, he's trying to set the stage and say, hey, it's been proven, though, that recollections differ, that things look different when you're looking at it from video, and you guys or gals may be engaging in some Monday morning quarterbacking here, whatever you call that. I feel like that is what's going on here. I wonder whether or not he had an attorney when he wrote this up and submitted this. For any and all other purposes, I hereby reserve my constitutional right to remain silent under the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution and any other rights prescribed by law. Further, I rely specifically upon the protection afforded me under the doctrines set forth in Garrity versus State of New Jersey and Spivak versus Klein, should this report be used for any other purpose of whatsoever kind or description. I have been informed that I have an administrative hearing on Friday, January 20th, 2023, arising from a statement of charges, which was what I mentioned earlier, that I received setting forth certain allegations regarding violations of policies and procedures for which the discipline is being suggested. I have also been contacted by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, which is undertaking a criminal investigation of the incident in question, which has received wide media speculation and statements from the Memphis Police Department's chief as well as the mayor of the city of Memphis. Let me stop right here because he does mention this piece about widespread media speculation and statements. If you looked at any of my videos pertaining to this incident, then you know that I have held off from speaking about rumors, these unsubstantiated statements that are being made, that people are talking about. I have really not gone down that path. I've preferred to stick to the documents and to talk about those documents, how we feel about those documents, what's in those documents, what we may be thinking about those documents. It's hard enough just to talk about those than to talk about all of the speculation. And additionally, how many cases have we seen around defamation? Now, this is not to say that I'm not going to do a video about the rumors that are going on. My intent is to talk about it from the position of the fact that it is speculation. We have not seen any documentation around these rumors yet. I'm not even going to go into detail about what those rumors are, but I want us to set the stage about how we talk about news and incidents, things that are going on, because when we talk about the actual speculation and rumors and statements that are being made, we give them more credibility to an extent that they now rise up when people start to do a search and want to read more about what's going on. It's the rumor that becomes the news instead of the actual documents, the actual charges, the statements that have been made. And so I'm not really going to be one of these people who's going to be diving deeply in a lot of the speculation. And I've even sort of shied away from that for other, there's another murder case that I've looked at just a little bit, not a whole lot. There was an incident relating to that, and I have seen no documents to substantiate some of the speculation that has gone on. And so speculation is almost a whole nother video in and of itself. How do we want to treat speculation? And people have shared a lot of that in the comments for my videos. I don't know exactly what to do with the speculation, but I don't think the speculation should rise above what we know to be the truth. And what we have right here in front of us is a statement that has been provided by the Memphis Police Department. And this is essentially a receipt that we can take a look at. It is documented. Some of these other things, it's not documented, it's not proven. We haven't had anybody really step forward and confirm some of this. And so I really want to leave that out there, and we can talk about that in a different sort of way. There is a way to have conversations about speculation, because a lot of times that speculation arises from some other truthful detail that does matter and that is backed up by documentation. We just want to make sure that we get these things right. And I say that because it's important to respect Tyre Nichols and his family. So I try to present these things in a good light. So, or in the best light in terms of how we talk about these issues, because these are people's lives, and it's important that we talk about these things in a respectful manner. I think about how I would want somebody to talk about my family. Moving on, not to be on a high horse, I have also been contacted by the District Attorney General's office through my attorney. I have been informed by more than one source that a criminal investigation is being undertaken, which could or might involve me and other officers of the Memphis Police Department. As much as I would like to set the record straight, based upon the inconsistencies and misstatements in the statement of charges given to me upon advice of counsel, I am not allowed to make any statements surrounding the incident of January 7th, 2023. And again, this is his right to do. We all have the right to remain silent, to wait until charges are filed, and to then have our defense. I would respectfully ask that this statement executed by me be placed in the administrative investigation file. I would state for the record that on January 7, 2023, I assisted another officer in making an arrest of a non-compliant suspect. My first interaction with that suspect my first interaction with that suspect was that suspect fighting with the other officer and failing to comply in our attempts to take the suspect into custody. You know, it can be difficult to try to figure out what's going on if you're just showing up at the scene. I have to go back and look at the video around that particular one. It's sort of hard to see which officer is which and who's doing what. On the day in question, I was directed to be on desk duty because of an on the job injury, which was serious enough to disable my abilities by way of a knee injury suffered the preceding day. Even though I was directed to be on desk duty, I was directed by my supervisors to be on patrol. While on stationary observation duties as directed, dispatches were made where an officer needed assistance after an officer had attempted to investigate a traffic stop. It was stated in the radio dispatch that the suspect has been tased as well as sprayed with OC spray and had fled the scene. Even though no one else requested medical assistance because of the reported tasing and chemical spray, I immediately made a radio call and indicated that medical should be sent to the area where the suspect was last seen to possibly render medical aid if the suspect was taken into custody. Now, at this point, he is actually using his statement to provide additional information about what his role was. I guess we'll get to the point where he may, because I haven't taken a look at this. This is my first look at this, my first review of this, and we're just going to react to it as we review it. He's talking about the fact that he was in the office and he gets this call, but he hears that the person, Mr. Nichols, has been tased and has been sprayed. And in his mind, he knows the first thing to do is, I need to call for medical assistance. So that is what he's saying here. This is interesting to note because if you're his attorney, then you're thinking, you know, this is a way to distinguish you, to set you aside, to differentiate you from the very beginning from the other officers on the scene, that your path to this incident was somewhat different, and that initially your course of action may have been following policy just as you were supposed to do. Okay. So he's laying out this framework because we haven't really heard a lot of this from the other officers. He's laying out his framework of how he got to that scene. This is setting a stage for people to know, at least on his side, whether or not and at what point things started to go wrong for him. I'm wondering to what extent he's going to want to separate himself once, you know, they move forward with the charges in the trial and that sort of thing. Because this is what it sounds like to me. Like he now, from the very beginning, you know, before this hearing, he says, I'm not like them. Here's what was happening with me. I feel like that is what's going on. You let me know if you feel like that's something different. By distinguishing yourself, maybe you can say that you were less culpable, because I think that that is where he is trying to go with this, to set the stage early on that he is somehow less culpable. I'm not saying whether he was or not, but I think that that's maybe some of what's going on here. Let's go back to the document. I then came upon one officer, he says, I came upon one officer taking what was later learned to be the same suspect to the ground. Now, I would have liked more information because he immediately goes from, I made this call to now I'm here on site. It'd be interesting to know, you know, on his way to the site, was there any sort of radio interactions, any communications, any further information that he received about what was going on and what kind of situation he was walking into? I feel like that whole piece is missing here. We just go from him being behind the desk to him being there. I then came upon one officer taking what would later learn to be the same suspect to the ground. I assisted that officer in our attempts to take that suspect into custody. The suspect was violent and would not comply. These are very subjective words. I think that that was one of the issues that the department had when it wrote up its charges, to say the person was violent. That's just a subjective word. In my opinion, I might think someone is emotional when they're talking a certain way. Another person might say, no, I talk that way all the time. I'm not necessarily overly emotional or anything like that. It's just how I talk. Some of these words can be very subjective. If you want more objectivity, then you tend to use words that are quantitative in nature. And so you don't say a person was violent, you say a person swung at me twice with their right hand and it hit my face. You really describe what's going on. We don't see that here. We see a label that's used to capture the entirety of supposedly what Mr. Nichols was doing. He says he was violent. But what does that mean? I don't know what that means. That doesn't tell me anything. I know nothing when I see that statement. So sometimes these subjective words are intended to imply something and have you feeling a certain way, and you have nothing else to go on. So it's hard to know whether or not the suspect was actually violent. It is my contention that I personally utilized the training and defensive tactics provided to me as a Memphis police officer in attempting to handcuff the suspect. Okay, this is what we need to talk about. This right here is what we need to talk about. This part where he says, I use the training and defensive tactics that they taught me. Remember, this is a whole unit that has been put together for a specific purpose. This is probably going to be part of his defense. You taught me this. You trained me to do this. And now you're coming back and telling me that I did something wrong. Like, I totally see I don't want to say the setup here, but I can totally understand and see what his defense could say and what they could possibly use with this language. They're basically throwing the ball back at the City of Memphis Police Department. Is he wrong to do that? Remember, I said in the very beginning, some of you would probably be upset about me saying this, but as little toddlers running around, you're not thinking that this is what you want to grow up to be. At some point in time, you are taught this, you are trained this, told this is how you treat a person. Yet we know that we should be instilling more de-escalation techniques, bringing other people on board who may be able to calm somebody down. We know Mr. Nichols was very upset, calling for his mom, wanting help, telling them they were doing the most. You guys are doing a lot here. And yet, we know the outcome of what happened. So I really think that some of the defense is going to be that the department taught me how to do this. The department provided me with the training. The department was the one that gave me the car, the tools, the spray, the baton. The department provided all of this equipment. And therefore, I did exactly what the department trained and equipped me to do. And this is why we talk about the systems that are in place that need to be changed. And that's probably enough of me running my mouth. I categorically deny utilizing any defensive weapons other than OC spray. So he did not use a baton. He is saying he only used OC spray. OC spray was used only after another officer had attempted to utilize OC spray on the subject, but inadvertently sprayed himself. I have this. It's very cute. It's pink. It easily would fit in my bag. I run outside. I run pretty early. And this was a present given to me by my mom. It comes with directions that I have continued to have. It says pepper spray. It's by Sabre. Lipstick design. It says the #1 brand used by police. Protection against multiple threats. Protection at a safe distance. Be prepared training video. They know that I run early, and a lot of times it's still dark outside. But this is what my mom gave me. I still have it right here. I have not taken it out with me yet because of precisely what was just said. I'm afraid I'm just going to spray myself. I need to figure out the best way to use it and how to use it. And so I haven't taken it out with me yet. I I'm really concerned about spraying myself there. But they have had training. They have had training. They have had the training that I have not had. Let's go back and see what else he says about this. Obviously, because one officer believed that the use of OC spray was reasonable and necessary to gain control over the suspect, I then attempted to utilize my OC spray. I'm not sure whether or not it was effective when used. I continued to struggle with the actively resisting suspect to gain control of said suspect because he only had one arm/wrist handcuffed. Despite the effects of OC spray in my eyes and experiencing excruciating pain in my knee, officers were finally able to place the subject in custody. After the suspect was handcuffed, I then removed myself from the immediate vicinity as my knee was in severe pain. When I returned to the immediate area, I informed my fellow officers to assist me in sitting the suspect against my squad car in order for the suspect to breathe better. The medical personnel on the scene were providing direct medical care and were discussing treatment of the suspect with my lieutenant who had arrived on the scene. Let me stop here for a second because he said he removed himself from the immediate vicinity. All of these details are going to be really important for us to understand who was responsible for what. How long did he remove himself from the scene? What happened while he was removed from the scene? How far away from the scene was he actually? Was he still close enough to have an idea of what was going on? Where did he go and what did he do during that time? All of this information, I think, is very crucial to determining his culpability and what he was responsible for with what happened. None of this is in here. Remember, one of the things that the charges says was that these statements that were made did not go into detail about the fact that they kicked and beat him. And he's not mentioning this here. I haven't finished this yet, but we haven't seen this in here. I don't see this mentioned in here. Maybe I'm missing it, but I really don't think so. Then it says, okay, so medical personnel on the scene were providing direct medical care and were discussing treatment of the suspect with my lieutenant who had arrived on the scene. There has been a lot of concern about the medical personnel who arrived because they too have been terminated. As it relates to the use of my body-worn camera, dispatch records will show that a very short, brief period of time elapsed from the time of the initial call, from the time the initial call went out to the time that I inadvertently came upon the other officer attempting to subdue the suspect. Now, I don't know that there's anything inadvertent about that. You left your desk duty to go to the scene. That's not inadvertent. I'm not sure that that's the proper word that's supposed to be used there. This was purposeful. You left the desk duty to assist at the scene. I did not immediately turn my body worn camera on as I was getting out of my car, but I did turn it on as I interacted with the suspect. I did not intentionally fail to activate my body worn camera. The safety of the other officers and myself was paramount. And you have his signature and you have the date there, and there it is notarized. That is Mr. Smith's statement that we now have had an opportunity to see. react to, comment. I hope that brings you up to speed with Mr. Justin's statement, Mr. Smith's statement, everything that he said in that statement, and then the things that I've sort of hinted at. Maybe this is going to be part of his defense. There are some things that are missing here that are not really clarified. Of course, his statement is designed to present a certain side, right? He's not presenting Mr. Nichols' side. He's presenting his own side. When we present our own side, we're always trying to present facts that represent us in the best light, and we definitely know that. We will continue to follow this and see how this unfolds. And at this point, I'm just going to say prayers for everyone involved, because this is just a very tough situation, and we have to get to the point where we do not see this happen anymore to anyone else. Prayers and peace.